Before we jump into this episode, if you've noticed there hasn't been a new one for a week or two, or even 6 over the summer, that's because Show Up and Be Heard runs in seasons around the school holidays. I do it this way so that the podcast fits around my real life and the energy it actually takes to show up properly. It's also me practicing what I preach, that you don't have to glorify being busy and you don't have to be doing all the time to be successful. Pausing, resting and stepping back actually makes everything feel lighter and more sustainable in your business and in your life. So if there aren't any new episodes right now, the podcast hasn't stopped and a new season is coming soon. In the meantime, you can catch up on any episodes you've missed and make sure you're following or subscribed so the next ones land straight into your feed. Right then, let's get into the episode that you've pressed play on. In today's episode, I am talking about something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, what freedom actually means in business. Freedom is one of my core values, and it's something that's become even more important to me as I plan my new business year. I've been reflecting on how I want my business to work for me, for my members and clients, as well as for the life that I want to live. So if you have ever felt like your business is running you, or you're juggling growth, visibility, and all the daily tasks whilst wondering if there's a better way to do it, then this episode is for you. I'm sharing my thoughts, some ideas, and the lessons I've learned so far about creating clarity, confidence, and space in business without burning out. But before we dive in, if you are new here, hi, I am your host, Becky McAvoy. I am a multi-award-winning social media marketer and the dreamer behind Be Heard Socials and the Boss Your Socials Club. I created this podcast to help women like you simplify your life and grow a business on your terms without the overwhelm. So if you're ready for some no BS advice, practical tips and honest chats that make social media and business feel lighter and more doable, then you are in exactly the right place. Whilst you're here, can I please ask a tiny favour? If you're enjoying the show, it would mean the world if you could follow the podcast and leave a quick review. It genuinely helps more women discover the show because the more engagement it has, the more the platforms recommend it to people who need this kind of support. It only takes a small moment, but it makes such a massive difference. Thank you so much. Now let's get started with this week's episode. A couple of years ago, I changed when I set my business goals. So I used to always do it in January because that's when it feels like you're meant to set goals, doesn't it? And it's when all the noise on social media is about setting goals and, January is a fresh start and a new year, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I changed it to sort of March, April time, and I decided to run my business completely, not just financially, from April through to March. So my financial year has always been April through to March since I started in business, but it wasn't the way that I planned my goals. So to try and make that match up a little bit and make a bit more sense, but also to do it at a time where I generally felt better. January is bleak at the best of times, and I generally felt better around the springtime and I felt more motivated and excited. I moved my goal setting to that time as well. So I have recently just been in that period of planning and thinking and starting to think about what I want to do for the new year. And I have within that been reflecting so much on a few milestones. So my podcast turns 2 this year. Boss Your Socials Club turns 3. And my business is heading into its 7th year. So Be Heard Socials turns 7 in October, which just feels insane. Like it feels wild. And I am so proud of that. But looking at that all together made me pause and think about how I want my business to work going into the new year, not just for my clients, but obviously that is a big part of it, and my members too, but for me and for the life I want to live as well. So like I said, lots of that thinking has been prompted by the fact that I've been doing this planning, but it's also been prompted by a conversation I had recently with a guest on the podcast. It was actually the last episode of the previous season of Show Up and Be Heard. And it was with the wonderful Rebecca Cracknell. And mostly from that conversation, or what prompted my thinking and sort of spiraled me into thinking big and thinking of lots of things I wanted to maybe change or do or move myself out of my comfort zone on, was around purpose and the way that we evolve over time. And it was almost like it was perfect timing because I was going into the planning for my new business year, and it just really, really got me thinking. So I won't repeat the stuff around purpose and the way we evolve on here, because I had that conversation with Rebecca on the last episode of the last season of the podcast, and I will link to it in the show notes if you'd like to go and give it a listen so that you can find out about that in more depth and what I thought about that. But in a nutshell, that conversation, as well as I guess the way my 2025 ended and my 2026 has begun, has really got me thinking a lot about freedom as a value in my business, because it is one of my values, and a value in my life as well, because it's not just a business value, it is a personal value as well. And I don't just mean the kind that's about money or location, but I mean the kind of freedom that gives you choice, control, and clarity, like real clarity in your work and in your life and in your purpose, like I said just now. Through all of that thinking, and if I'm completely honest, soul searching a little bit, I've realized that freedom is something I want to prioritize even more going into the new business year, not just for me, but for every woman I work with and through everything that I do. So I thought I would use this episode to share some of my reflections with you. And I hope that they're useful in helping prompt some of your own thinking, maybe, or if not, that you just find it interesting to hear about some of the thought process that I've been through and some of the reflections that I've had. So the place that I started with all of this was to ask myself, what does freedom actually look like for me in my business? And what does it look like for the women I want to support and help and all of that kind of thing? So like I said just now, for me, it's not just about financial independence. It's not just about money, but it's the ability to make choices that work for my life, not just in the long term, but in the moment too. I want to have total control over my time, my energy, and my mental space, and to feel confident in the decisions that I make every day. And I want the women that I work with and that I support to have that too. It's about being able to choose which projects I take on, how and when I work, and what I let go of. And like I said, I don't just mean that long term, I mean that in the moment as well. It's about running a business that serves me, not one that owns me. And I know firsthand how easy it is to lose sight of that. I am quite proud of the fact that I do have a lot of freedom in my business. I have been prioritizing it over the last year, but I want even more of that. And I want more control over it because it is so easy to lose sight of it. And there's several times that's happened because I haven't been clear enough on it, even in the last year where I have been prioritizing it more. And not just over the last year, I've had so many moments over the last almost 7 years of running a business where I was juggling too many commitments, I was working too many late nights and feeling stretched too thin. Even though I was my own boss, even though I was in control, it's my business, I can choose what I do. I'd lost sight of it. And there were too many moments, like I said, where I was juggling too much or not putting the kids to bed enough because I was catching up on something I needed to work on. Now, don't get me wrong. I know sometimes that needs to happen, but it's about when it's the exception and not the rule, and you don't want it to become the rule. Now, I think I've moved to a point where it probably is the exception more than it is the rule. But like I said, I still think I fall into traps. And a lot of my reflections were around that, of feeling like guilt over the freedom that I was giving myself, which was ridiculous. And that was a lot of what came from my conversation with Rebecca. It made me have some really hard conversations with myself and really challenge myself on some things. And honestly, it's exhausting and it doesn't feel like growth if it just feels like survival. Freedom, on the other hand, what it should feel like, feels energizing, focused, and intentional. That's what I want my business to feel like. And that's what I want that freedom to give me. I have also been reflecting on, because I don't just want this to be about me, I want it to be about my members, my clients, and the women that I help and support as well. Why most businesses fall into the trap of being their own boss, but still feeling stuck to certain ties. And I think it's because a lot of us fall into the same pattern as women running businesses. We start with passion and excitement, whether that is when we are starting our business journey or a new business year or a new quarter or whatever it might be. But somewhere along the way, our business starts running our life. And I think that's more common if we are really honest with ourselves, even as people who prioritize freedom. If you are somebody like me who does that, I think if we're really honest with ourselves, we fall into that pattern where our businesses start to run our life rather than the other way round. We feel guilty about taking breaks. We feel stressed about growth. We start drowning in comparison and convinced we have to do everything and always want more to succeed. And I also think that's totally normal because of the world we live in, like what we see on social media and how much noise we are exposed to on a daily basis. Like, I don't think we should beat ourselves up about that because I think we're human and that's okay. But what I do think is that we need to stand in our own strength and say it doesn't have to be that way. Growth, visibility, and success are amazing, but only if you can enjoy them without burning out. So the difference for me is intentional design, making conscious choices about how your business operates, how you show up, and how you protect your time and energy, and really consciously challenging yourself on the shoulds and the need to, and the stories that we tell ourselves, and having those difficult conversations. So they were kind of my sort of thoughts around, like what freedom means. Then I moved into a process of thinking about how to genuinely and really make freedom a priority. So thinking about how do we actually make freedom not just a value or a goal in business, but a genuine lived priority. So I've been experimenting with this myself, and there are a few practical steps that have really helped me in my planning that I thought might be helpful to share with you. So the first one is about identifying your non-negotiables and spending real time actually thinking about this. So thinking about what you absolutely need in your day, week, and life to feel balanced and energized. Maybe it's time for exercise, for family dinners, or putting the kids to bed, or even just an afternoon to plan without distractions. Whatever it is, these are the things that your business has to fit around, not the other way around. So for me, and actually I did this last year, but again, like I said, I've fallen into traps where doing it means I've worked evenings when maybe I shouldn't have. Exercise is a non-negotiable for me. I want to be healthier. I hate exercise. I don't want to have to do it, but it is a non-negotiable for me because without it, I feel horrible. I'm getting to an age where it's becoming increasingly more important. So I needed to really think about how I made my business fit around that, not the other way round. And like I said, I did that at the beginning of last year. So I put in some regular exercise times. I have stuck to those. But what if I'm really honest with myself, I've found that is too often I fall back into the pattern of working an extra day or working an evening to get things done. And like I said, it's not the fact that I can't do that at all, because again, it comes down to choice, but it needs to be the exception and not the rule. So yeah, the first thing that really helped me, and something I would recommend you spend some time doing if you want to think about this, is identify your non-negotiables and then work out how to fit those in and how your business fits around that and not the other way round. And be really honest about that, because if you're saying, which I said for years, my health needs to be a priority, I need to exercise, etc., 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 but I wasn't actually changing anything to make that happen, it wasn't a non-negotiable and it wasn't a priority. So yeah, that was the first one. The second one, which I am all about, is simplifying and focusing. So growth doesn't have to mean doing everything. Look at what you are spending your time on and ask yourself, does this move me forward or does it add unnecessary stress? And some of that will be trial and error. So I have been experimenting with that over the last year or so with my emails. I went to emailing once a month instead of every week. I've actually gone back to emailing every week. So it's not like you have to go, I'm going to do this thing and that will be forever the way that I do it. We are our own bosses. We can test and experiment. But I think the really important message in all of this is that growth doesn't have to mean doing everything. So like I said, look at what you are spending your time on and ask yourself that question. Does this move me forward or does it add unnecessary stress? Am I doing this because it is helping me move forward, or am I doing this because I feel like I have to, because that's what someone on Instagram or LinkedIn has told me? So yeah, again, just set some time aside to do that. And I've given exercise as an example. I've given my emails as an example. That is just personal to me. This time, and why it's so important to give yourself time, isn't for me to turn around and go, you don't need to email so often, because like I said, I've changed my mind on that again. It has to be personal to you. So give yourself that time to really think about how you can simplify and focus. Okay, so the third one is something that I adore and talk about all the time because it is so huge and it is so essential to your success and to making freedom happen, like making it really come to life. And it is setting boundaries. So saying no strategically protects your time, your energy, and your mental load. It's not about being rigid. It's about creating space for the things that matter most. And it kind of comes back to that non-negotiables. What boundaries do you need in place for those non-negotiables to happen? For me, this has been a game changer in reducing overwhelm. And for me, like I said, I looked at it when I brought exercise in, and it was like, right, what boundaries do I need to make that happen? And I put some boundaries in place to make that happen, and to mean that I did prioritize that and didn't let myself choose something else because it was distracting me, which is really hard for someone like me. And when your brain works the way that mine does, it does take work. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but it is really important. So again, spend some time thinking about the boundaries that you need to make freedom happen, to make your non-negotiables happen. It's really huge. And write them down, because that gives it real meaning and it helps you commit to it as well. Number 4 is building systems that work for you. So I'm talking about things like templates, processes, or tools that streamline your work and can save you hours every week and prevent decision fatigue as well. Even small systems like batching emails or social media or automating different parts of your business can free up mental space and energy. So get those things in place so that you don't have to think about it, and it can just take away some of your thinking and give you so much time back. I am still in the process of doing this. And if anything, it's probably an ongoing thing. I have to make time for it on a fairly regular basis because things can change, but it is so effective. Don't let this overwhelm you if you're literally starting from scratch. Maybe start by brain dumping the systems that you need or the automations that you need to put in place, and then take them on one by one and do one a week or one a month or whatever it might be. But over time, you will gradually see how it frees up your time and gives you more freedom to either focus on different things in your business or not work at all and take more time off if you want to. So yeah, systems are really, really crucial, I think, to what I've been planning and what I've been doing and really having that freedom in your business. Okay, so the 5th and final one is be intentional about your visibility and growth. You don't have to do everything or show up everywhere. Decide how you want to show up, where your audience is, and what truly aligns with your goals and how much time you have. So it might be that you want to be everywhere. It's not because you don't want to, but if you don't have the time, focus on the ones that get you the best results or the places that you enjoy being, and doing those things well rather than trying to do everything. I think it's really powerful to be intentional about your visibility and growth, and you can get really, really great results for it. Because ultimately, when you put freedom at the center, growth becomes something that you can enjoy. And that matters because when you enjoy it, you get better results from it. You do it more often. It's easier to be consistent with it. And you stop feeling trapped in your business. And instead, you feel confident, in control, and capable of scaling sustainably. And that is key. That sustainability is so important. So before we wrap up, here are a few small but powerful ways I think that you could start creating more freedom in your business this week or this month if you want to, because I'd love to give you some things that you can tangibly go away and do. And if you do go away and do these, please share it with me, because honestly, it would make me so, so happy. So the first one is to just start by auditing your to-do list. Pick one area where you are overcomplicating things and simplify it, or where you are doing things because you always have or because you feel you should do, and scrap it off your to-do list. Less really can be more. And Rebecca gave a great approach to this in the last episode of last season, using her 4D method to nail your to-do list, basically. It was the episode that I mentioned earlier. So like I said, I've linked to it in the show notes. So go and check that out if you would find it helpful, and go and give it a listen, because it was such a good conversation. And Rebecca is so wonderful and has such a great approach to it. The second thing you could do is give yourself permission to pause. Set aside a block of time, even if it's just half an hour or an hour, to step back from tasks and just think. It could be reflecting on your goals, planning your priorities, or just noticing what's working and what's not. This has been really, really massive for me in the last few weeks to really help get my head clear and think about what I actually want, rather than just constantly feeling chained to my to-do list. The next one that you could do is revisit your boundaries. You could start by just looking at one boundary that feels flexible or stretched and reinforce it, and put something in place, whether that's a system or an automation or a feature on Instagram, for example, to really help you keep that strong. It might be setting clearer work hours, saying no to a request, or saying yes to more, or delegating a task that's weighing on you. And if you don't have boundaries at all at the moment, then set that time aside, like I said earlier on, just to set some and get them down and see them in front of you on the paper, so that you can go, yeah, this is a real thing. This is not something that's in my head. This is important. The next one that I think you could do is experiment with saying yes differently. So, for example, try saying yes to opportunities that feel aligned or that you felt too busy for, and see how it shifts your energy and focus. So say yes to things that you've been saying no to previously because your to-do list was too big or you had other things to do. Because freedom isn't just about removing things, it's also about creating space for what matters most. So try saying yes differently and see how that impacts your mood, your energy, and your focus, and how you feel about your business and your life. And then finally, notice where you have been running on autopilot. So pick one repeated task or habit in your business that feels heavy or draining or that you dread doing, and see if there's a smarter way or a simpler way to do it, because small tweaks add up surprisingly fast, can make such a difference. So yeah, have a think about how you can do it differently, or even whether you ditch it or delegate it or whatever it might be. But notice where you're running on autopilot. Pick one thing that feels heavy, that feels draining, or that you dread doing, and see how you can do it differently to make it more enjoyable, or stop doing it completely. Because like I said, small tweaks like that add up surprisingly fast. And I honestly think exploring one of these this week or this month can start changing how you feel in your business, and can start to give you more freedom, even if it's not the big end goal of the amount of freedom that you want in your business or how you want freedom to look. It can just change how much space and energy you have for the things that really matter. And when you start to feel that, you'll get a bit of a dopamine hit off it and feel it a little bit more having an impact. And I really hope that starts to then motivate you to go, yeah, this is worth it. And it's hard, and it's hard questions that I'm asking myself, but it's worth it. So it was quite a short and sweet episode to kick off this new season of the podcast. But I feel like for me that this might be the start of something, and I am excited about it. So as I finalize planning my new year, there will be some changes coming to my business based on these reflections and based on the actions that I've given you, I have been doing myself, and what has come from that. There will be changes made. And honestly, I'm really excited. So you are welcome to come along for the ride. I will share it in real time here if you are interested. And hopefully it will get you thinking about your own business too. Even small changes, a new boundary, a simplified process, or a conscious decision about what to focus on can make a huge difference. Growth, visibility, and success are wonderful, obviously, but freedom and running your business your way is what makes it all sustainable and enjoyable. So I would love to know what you've thought about my reflections, whether you have plans to go and do any of the actions that I've shared, or whether you are interested in this as well, because it can be quite hard running a podcast sometimes because you're effectively talking to yourself. So that kind of feedback is really helpful. If you do want to come along in real time with me and find out how I am doing this in my business, come and let me know. Share that you've listened to the podcast on your stories, or drop me a DM, or whatever it might be. I would really, really love to hear from you. And I cannot wait to share more as I figure it all out for my own business too. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I am honestly so grateful you choose to spend your time here. Before you go though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I have got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should, because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. You get a monthly content plan, ready-to-use templates, accountability and action sessions, a private members podcast, expert support, a brilliant community of women who get it, and so much more. It's like having a mini social media expert and a bunch of cheerleaders in your pocket, so you can show up with confidence without the overwhelm. Membership starts at just £14 a month, and there is different tiers depending on the level of support you want. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.